afternoon. We hope you have enjoyed the day so far and received a ton of helpful information. We are going to wrap up today's event by recapping and answering some of your questions. So please make sure if you have any questions that you pop them into the chat so that we can weigh in. I am Sunny, Sonlight's community manager and a Sonlight mom of two. My kids have been educated entirely with Sonlight. And joining me are Judy, Jonna, and Sheila. You may have already chatted with these ladies during other sessions today, but we'll start with introductions just in case you're not familiar with them. So Sheila, do you want to go first?
Absolutely. I'm a retired homeschool mom of three. They are all out of the home and out of college even, and they're working in the world. And I just really enjoy talking with new homeschoolers and encouraging them in the journey.
All right, Jonna, your turn.
I am a homeschool mom of four, and three have graduated. Two of those out of college, one in college. The last one is a senior this year, so I am almost to the ranks of veteran homeschool mom. I'm also a director of a co-op and an administrator, and I work as a sales consultant for Sonlight during the summers.
Great. And Judy, you want to introduce yourself?
Good afternoon, Sunny. So I am Sonlight's marketing sales manager. I am also a retired homeschool mom of three kids, all of whom were educated with Sonlight and all of whom are out of college, out of school, out of college, and some have children, and we now have a second generation of Sonlighters.
Well, great. Yeah, it's so nice to have you all here. I did the math on it, and between the four of us, we have over 70 years of homeschool experience. So if you have a question, we would love to answer that for you. We've probably, at least one of us, have experienced that. We've had all sorts of different types of sessions today, but our early sessions were all about setting a foundation. So whether that be through prayer or quiet time or tackling the times when you do feel overwhelmed. So ladies, how would you encourage someone who might be dealing with hard situations that isn't far enough along in their journey yet to really have experienced those positives and they may not be seeing that yet? What can they look forward to?
One of the things when I talk to moms that feel very inadequate to being the teacher, the homeschooling teacher, is that they need to be one day smarter than their kids. That God doesn't call the equipped to teach our kids. He equips us to teach our kids as we go along. And so that's my big motto to a lot of moms: one day smarter. You know, you don't have to know how to do rocket science to teach ABCs 1, 2, 3. You just learn it right with them. Whatever you don't know, you're going to learn. And it's great. I've learned so much since I started homeschooling.
That's exactly right. There were lots of things that I felt really intimidated by or just not prepared to teach when we first started. But we first started with kindergarten, and I had a 3-year-old and a baby. And I thought, okay, kindergarten, how hard is kindergarten? I should be able to do that. And so we just baby stepped our way 1 year at a time. And I learned right along with them. And, you know, I had a real passion to be the primary influence in my child's life. And so I was like, I'll do whatever it takes. You know, if I have to learn math, I can learn math. Thankfully, by high school, I figured out that I didn't have to do algebra and geometry. I could outsource that to people who really, really are good at that and enjoyed that. But I didn't let that stop me. I didn't let that intimidate me from because I didn't know it all, that I couldn't do it at all. So, yeah. So I say jump in and start, and you'll figure it out. You really will.
And I would just add, find someone that's a little further down the path than you are on their homeschool journey. Mentors are great. And even if they don't carry that label, if you know someone who's been homeschooling 1 year more than you have, then that person has something to offer. And most homeschoolers I'm familiar with love to share their journey and are willing to answer questions. And if you absolutely can't find a mentor, we have some. And so check out the connections page on Sonlight's website, and you can learn all about the Sonlight app and meet the Sonlight mentors.
Yes, that is so true. And I think like what you were saying, Judy, about finding mentors, if you've talked to any other moms who homeschool, most of them love to talk about it because it is something that we've been so involved with in our lives. We've seen the fruits of those labors with our kids too. And so it's definitely something that we love to talk about and love to share about. It looks like Christina has a question about, my question is, can I add another year to my high school? I have a 14-year-old who has done Sonlight from the beginning, and we are currently in 300. So yeah, can you stretch out high school if you would like to do that?
Yes, I like to call that 13th grade. I've talked to some people. We chose not to do that, but I have talked to some people whose child was not really ready, like maturity wise. The child was not really ready to go into the world, whether work world or college. And the child wanted to stay home, and they really wanted to do British Lit, and they had run out of years. And so I remember talking to this woman in the booth, and I said, sure, there's no reason why you have to graduate them this year. You can keep them home for one more year and just do 13th grade. What a blessing that your child wants to be at home with you for another year. You have another year to speak into their life, to influence her before she goes out into the world. So absolutely, if you have a willing child, you certainly can.
And another possibility is dual enrollment. So maybe keep your child home for that 13th year, as Sheila was mentioning, and do some things in your homeschool and check with your local community college and allow your student to take some dual enrollment classes so they start to get a taste of what college life could potentially be like, but they're still at home and still interacting with you as they do some more homeschooling subjects as well.
Yeah, that is great tips. My kids are not that old yet, but I will definitely keep that in mind if they get to that point and we do decide to stretch it out a little bit. Elizabeth is asking if we can share more about Sonlight curriculum coming from a Christian perspective and not mostly just from a worldly perspective. Curious how Sonlight's science program especially differs from other homeschool science programs. What do you ladies think?
Okay, I'll jump in. I didn't want to talk for anybody. I love that Sonlight does have the Christian perspective, but it's not a all Bible program. Like I have seen some homeschool curriculum where everything is colored by a Christian, I don't want to say perspective, but like a Christian patina, if you will. And Sonlight doesn't use books that were written specifically for a curriculum. They use literature. So it's just regular books that we use to teach historical perspective or biography or even science biographies, things like that. So it's not, it's filtering everything through a Christian lens, but it's not this super sweet, super cleaned up version of the world, because we don't live in that version of the world. Our world is a fallen world, and this is the world that we live in. And so we need to be having conversations with our kids about what it's like. And we start very young. We have Bible all the way from preschool, and it goes all the way through high school. And as the kids get older, we introduce more and more conversations that might be, as they mature, it is age appropriate. So even our science, we do teach it from a Christian perspective. So we're not going to teach evolution and Darwin and I don't know, all those secular humanism, all those types of perspectives. We do teach from a Christian worldview, but it's true science. It's not just, well, God did it this way and that's it. I mean, we talk about biology, we talk about physics, we talk about all those true science subjects. So I hope that answers your question.
And I think you'll find the Christian perspective in Sonlight much of that is found in the instructor's guide. So while we do use all the different types of literature that Sheila just mentioned, because you do want your children to be exposed to different worldviews and the reality of history and what happened, we also will provide in the instructor's guides notes for you as the parent teacher to alert you to those topics and subjects that are coming up, suggestions for different ways to approach those conversations, perhaps even some additional suggestions for other resources that you can use. So the Christian perspective, as I mentioned, is primarily found in that instructor's guide. And that's true as well in the science. We certainly will introduce an evolutionary perspective, even at younger years. And I remember being concerned that my elementary age children weren't going to be able to handle and understand evolution because that's not what we had taught them growing up. But I found instead that it was great to have those conversations where we could talk about the difference between what we knew to be true based on scripture and what other people thought to be true, and how we could handle those conversations. And they did run into those even as younger children with friends.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I've seen that with my kids, especially as they get older. They're going to hear things from other people. So I love that Sonlight does bring in those other views or perspectives. I'm not sheltering my kids from knowing what's out there, but I'm teaching them in an age-appropriate way, right? So Sonlight, when they introduce something that might go against, our personal beliefs, we are able to explain to them, that there are people who feel this way, or they learn about other world religions as well when they're learning about those cultures. And that doesn't mean that, we're saying that this is factual, and this is what we believe. But the Sonlight IG, it kind of walks us through, like, how do we show that other perspective and let them know what we believe? And still, it gives you time to engage with them and listen to them as well, because they probably will have questions if it's a new idea or concept for them. Sorry, go ahead.
I see the question asking about the transcript.
Yes,
so can I would like to address that one.
Yes, please do.
I think the way that I would do it is I would not design my transcript by grade. Like I would not say 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th grade. I would just do it by subject. So English, math, science, history. And then you can list everything under those categories. And it is okay if you have 5 or 6 listed under a category, because in the really fancy schools, the IB programs or the ACE programs, I don't know if they have those around the country, but those higher level public schools, most kids will take 2 history classes or 2 science classes or whatever, because they are academic electives. So it is okay if you have 5 histories, but you're not delineating it by grade level. So I think I would get around it in that way.
I was going to say close to the same. I often advise families on their transcripts, and when they have the 5th year, or they did high school classes in 8th grade and they want it to count on their transcripts, we just rearrange the transcript instead of being 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th, just like Sheila said, science, math, English. Yeah. And then all their electives. And don't forget all their community services. So.
Right. A transcript is just a resume of what your child has done in school. So you can design your resume, your transcript, in different ways. There is not a government sanctioned, this is the one way to do a transcript. So.
And it might also be helpful if you have some idea of different colleges that your student is looking at, connect with the admissions department and ask them, what is it you're looking for on a transcript? Because you might be able to kind of tweak your transcript to specifically address what a particular college is looking for.
Great, thank you for that. Also, we were talking there about extending high school, but Tiana is asking, she's curious why some years are offered condensed. So like our B+C or D+E program, when might you want to put a child in a condensed program? What are those, or what type of student are those good for?
I think those are nice in many situations, but a few I can think of would be some people don't start homeschooling at kindergarten. They start when their children are older. And as you're planning out, the levels of sunlight that you want to use over the years, you may find, oh no, I don't have enough years. Grade 13 is fine, but you probably don't want your child home for 5 extra years. And so it may be that as you're getting started, the ability to condense an introduction to world history into 1 year, which would be our B+C, makes more sense for your long-term planning than it would be to divide it out. Another situation that I might think of is we have many international customers, families around the world that are using Sonlight. And while American history is important to them, they really don't want to spend 2 years introducing the history of a country that they're not living in. And so our 1 year introduction to American history, which would be level D+E, would be perfect for them because it gives them a year to learn about American history, but they're not spending more than they really need.
Yeah, and that's a level that I think is easy to tweak. So I know that some of our Canadian customers will use that level and then pull out some of the books and insert more of their own Canadian history into that. And same with the UK and, things like that.
Yeah, thank you. We have another high school transcript question about if your child is behind their grade level in math once they're in high school. Can that count for math, or does it have to be under other electives if it's behind grade level?
I'm assuming they're saying their child maybe not, or just starting pre-algebra or not quite to pre-algebra starting high school. I would advise you pull up HSLDA and look at your state requirements. What's required to get the diploma you want your child to get? Most states will want you to have algebra, geometry, and algebra 2 at a minimum. But that's 3 years, and you could put pre-algebra as a freshman level.
Great. Also, we have some people asking about purchasing Sonlight through charter schools. And Jonna, kind of what you said about checking your state requirement. I assume it would be the same with a charter school. Check with that school and see if you can order Sonlight that way. That is not something I've ever done. I don't know, have any of the rest of you done that either?
Yeah, you can't typically order Sonlight through a charter school because charter schools are tied to the state. And so state funds cannot purchase materials that are faith-based. And so my suggestion would be, we have a sister company called Bookshark, which is a faith-neutral program designed specifically for charter schools. And so you might want to take a look at Bookshark, but typically no, charter schools will not allot funds to purchase Sonlight curriculum materials.
All right. And Jennifer is asking about fitting in state history. I know sometimes states require that, or it might be something you want to add, or a lot of times states require, something, that isn't necessarily state history, but something specific to meet that state requirement. How do you add those types of things in on top of an already full Sonlight schedule?
So
go ahead, Jonna.
I was going to say, we pulled like just a state history book on, we live in Alabama before we lived in Kentucky. So I've done both, but added it just into our D+E at the time and did field trips, seeing all the historic places that we could get to. That was our fun day And so we added American history with our state history with our American history. That's how we handled it.
We did the same.
We didn't do state history. I mean, nothing specific to our state. I live in Florida. And yeah, we did a lot of field trips. We live close to St. Augustine, which is the oldest city in the nation, older than Jamestown and even Plymouth, just saying. But we would do field trips to, and just kind of pick up state history, but we did not do a formal state history.
And again, check with your state requirements, because Florida didn't require state history, but New York definitely did.
Yeah.
And so check that timeline as to when your state history began, and then hook it into the timeline of Sonlight's American history introduction. And you get a really nice perspective of seeing, American history, big picture, but also specifically for your state.
Yeah, and I think, Sheila, you brought up a good point too, that even if it's not required by your state, you can still learn about that state through field trips and other fun activities. Maybe a co-op would do something like that. So it should be relatively simple to add those things in, or move in the direction that your students are interested in. There was a question in the earlier 10 o'clock session about Bible study where Christy was talking about a book that she and her husband have worked through together. It's a devotional. We did check with her and get the title. So for anyone that was looking for that, it's called Daily Wisdom for Couples, Devotional Journal for Every Day. So if you are looking for that one, that is the book she was referencing, and it is a devotion that you can do as a couple. So I wanted to make sure you guys had that. We have a question about science programs. When will you guys have your new science programs available for the high school levels? Do we know that information yet? I know things are in the works, but I don't know that we have actual deadline yet.
We do know that at present we are not planning changing our high school level sciences. The updates that we are making are for our earlier level science programs, but not for high school at this time. But who knows what the future holds?
All right. So in some of our sessions later in the morning, we started talking about difficult conversations that you might have with children of all ages in teaching high schoolers. You guys have asked a lot of great high school questions this afternoon, but I know a lot of times people are scared about teaching teens, or, teens kind of get a bad rap when it comes to things. But I would love to hear from you ladies what your biggest joy was in teaching your kids as they got older, and what the best things about teaching high school were or are for Jonna, who's still got a high schooler.
I just remember having some really great conversations with my kids, and those hard conversations were some of the more fun ones because they were memorable. And we tried, as far as like things like the birds and the bees and those kind of hard conversations, we tried to keep it very, very casual. We never did the, like, we're going to sit down and have the talk. Just as things came up, we would just casually mention them, talk about them. We didn't want our kids to think like, oh, I can't talk to my parents about this. So we would just mention things as, if we saw something on TV, or if it was the right time, age-wise, like, I knew I had to have the conversation with my daughter about certain things. And so when the signs were there, I would just talk about it like it was, not a big deal. That's easy to say. I recognize that it's just like, oh yeah, I just have a conversation. But really, the less big deal you make of it, the more, like, you set the tone. So if you're going to be awkward and nervous about it, then it's going to make them awkward and nervous about it. Where if you're just like, hey, this is just, life, and I changed your diapers, and now there's another thing that you got to know about, and so that way they know that they can come to you. You're very open with them, and just say, look, if you hear about things, if kids are talking about things and you're not sure, just come ask me. I'll tell you whatever you want to know. And just make it, like I said, just make it a kind of a casual thing. And we have had really, really good and frank conversations about that. now that my kids are grown and they're all in their 20s, and some are dating, some are not, but they are watching us like, this is the kind of marriage I want. They see us. When they were kids, that's all they knew. But now that they're out there in the world and they've talked to friends and they come from broken homes and all these things, they are seeing things that they realize, oh, like what we have in our home is kind of not normal. And it's because we've cultivated that throughout all the years.
I'd say teaching high school is my favorite. I love it because it's like you're teaching them life. It's not just the books. It's not anything academic all the time, but it's teaching them how to go on past the academics. Even if it is doing their pre-calculus or whatever, you talk to them about college classes and what's expected and why you have to show all your work, because it's going to tell you you're going to have to do it when you go to the workforce. Everything gets an application put to it. Right before I left home, I was talking to one of my friends in my co-op, and she said she came in, brand new homeschool mom, scared to teach high school. She's teaching algebra, and she's like, they're my favorite. I never thought I would love it because they're mini adults and they have real conversations, and you can be silly with them and serious with them within the same 5 minutes. And so I love it.
I remember the one piece of advice that my mother gave me when I became a mom, one piece of parenting advice, and that was start young and talk to your children, communicate with your kids on a regular basis. Don't ever be too busy to talk with your kids. And so as I tried to put that into practice, I found that when we reached the high school ages, that foundation that we had laid of communicating with our kids made those high school years an amazing experience, because much as Sheila and Jana have already mentioned, there were a lot of conversations about deep and difficult things, things that were going on in their own lives, things that were going on in the world. Some scary things have happened in the last 20 years in this world that we live in. And those made for some amazing conversations about trusting that God had a plan, even when it certainly didn't look that way. And so even now as adults, all of those years of having those amazing conversations have carried over. And we still to this day truly enjoy talking with our children, and they enjoy spending time with us.
Yeah, and I think you guys pointed out those conversations are what build those relationships. And the nice thing, especially I think when you're discussing literature in school, you're already having a lot of conversations with your kids. And I know my daughter is a preteen right now. She's 12. And so we're starting to see a lot of the things that come up in middle school. But then, I get that little glimmer of hope when she'll come and discuss something with me. And I'm like, okay, that relationship, we've already started that foundation, and while it may be a little tumultuous at times right now, I know that if we continue on this path, when she's an adult, we have built that relationship over the last several years. So that's actually my favorite thing about homeschooling, is that I have that time with my kids where we can talk about whatever is going on in their lives. And, and they are much more open and willing to share it when it's a natural part of the conversation, like Sheila was saying. We're getting some questions about the best time to buy Sonlight at its cheapest price, and some questions about convention coupons, looking at multiple levels for packages. Can you guys give some input on when the best time to buy is, or if somebody is, trying to figure out when they should order for next year, how they should go about doing that?
Well, any time of year is a good time to buy from Sonlight. But we do, as someone had mentioned, we do offer promotions throughout the year. March is typically the time when we have some of our best promotions. But there are other promotional things that happen. I saw someone was asking about purchasing at a convention. You absolutely can purchase at almost all the conventions where Sonlight will be this year. And we offer, and we'll be offering again, a $40 coupon off an order of $250 or more. If you're not able to get to a convention, or the convention in your area is limited in some way by COVID or whatever, you are welcome to reach out to our advisors and ask for a convention coupon. They'll probably ask you which state convention you would typically attend, and then they will give you a coupon tied to that convention. But we would love to see you at conventions. We also, throughout the year, have other different promotions that go on. So it really depends on when you need your materials, and kind of tie that to when would be the best time for your family's schedule to purchase.
Yeah, personally, I like to purchase in March if I know my child's package isn't changing. A lot of times you can find, great discounts at that time of the year because new products are coming out April 1st. So just kind of check the catalog and see. And Judy, like you said, check the convention coupons, and there's always offers, where you can try things out. We are actually doing our warehouse sale next week where you can buy books that might be slightly defective or discontinued. So if you just want to get your hands on the literature and see, what we have available, that might be a good option for you as well. Let's see. Somebody is asking about conventions, finding out which conventions we participate in. Where could somebody find that information if they're not sure if there's one near them?
Sure. So again, go to the Sonlight website, and under the community tab, you will be able to find not only virtual events like this one that we're having today, but you will find, as you scroll down the page, a list of all the conventions where Sonlight will be represented this coming summer.
Great. And Holly is asking, what are the benefits of visiting Sonlight at a convention? What are some things that people can do at a physical convention that they can't do otherwise?
Well, you can come talk to us.
Yes.
Be there.
You can meet these lovely ladies face to face. There is something so helpful in the decision-making process about being able to pick up the books, talk face to face to someone who's already done that level, and just get a chance to really put your hands on the materials and to learn more about Sonlight in a one-on-one conversation.
Yeah, and Samantha, I see your question about updating the events list on the app. We will make sure to get that updated so that you have access to that on the app as well. In the middle of today, our sessions were more your homeschool logistics, which I know is often an area that people have a lot of questions about, whether it be the academics like language arts or math, or teaching different learning styles, but then also scheduling and those types of things. So ladies, what advice would you offer to someone who is struggling with either it's an academic area they're struggling to teach or setting up their schedule and how they're organizing their days?
Well, I have three things that I talk about all the time when I'm talking to people in the booth. The first one is combine as much as you can. If you have more than one child that you are homeschooling, and they're only within a couple of years, then you can certainly combine all of the couch subjects, which are read alouds, history, science, and Bible. There's no reason to do 2 history programs. There's no reason to do 2 science programs. Those are not skill-based subjects, so you can teach those together. That will save you time and it will save you money. Number 2, I tell people to block schedule those couch subjects. So instead of having the entire instructor's guide that you work through vertically every single thing, I would double up my reading assignment for history on one day, and then I would double up the science on the next day. So Monday and Wednesday was history day, and Tuesdays and Thursdays was a science day. It's just less finding the page, where's the book, open it up. It's just less flipping of pages, and it just saves time. And then finally, if at all possible, do the 4-day, because that will give you an extra day So it gives you a little bit of wiggle room, some breathing room. If you don't get all the history done on Wednesday, it's okay. You can finish up on Friday. If you didn't do all of the worksheet from science on Thursday, or you didn't have time to get you to your science activity, it's okay. You can do it on Friday. And if Friday you already had a field trip planned and you didn't do it, it's okay. You can do it on Saturday, because kids who go to school have homework on the weekend. It's okay to have a little bit of work on the weekend. It won't be the norm, but it'll help you to be able to keep up with the schedule as it is written. And it's not gospel that you have to finish it in 36 weeks. But if you are chomping at the bit in May to be done because the weather's beautiful and you want to be outside, then you will be motivated to get it done, at a reasonable time. But if you don't, if life happens and you get sick and you have a baby and, maybe your mom is in the hospital, whatever happens, it's okay. You can just keep going. And when you finish whatever particular level you're doing, level B, then whenever you finish it, you just start C. And it may be in October. It's okay. It's really okay.
Yeah, I think sometimes people need a little encouragement there that it is okay if you don't do everything. We actually have a comment saying, I always think I should get the 4-day, but then I get the 5-day because I love books and don't want to miss everything and then have to cut out to survive. And I feel that. I have always done the 5-day because I also love to read. But that doesn't mean that Monday through Friday is when we do school. Like Sheila said, we'll do it on the weekend sometimes, or, I might do school 4 days one week and 6 the next. We kind of, shift it around like that. You also have the option to do like a 4-day IG and then just get the 5-day books if you want those extra read alouds, and then your child can do them in the summer or really whenever you would like to do it. So I know that it sounds, almost trite when we say, oh, don't worry about it. But truly, the longer you homeschool, the more you realize you don't have to do every single thing exactly how it's scheduled.
Sometimes I think it's helpful to think back to your own school experience. I think especially of high school, and how many literature titles are scheduled in our instructor's guide at a high school level, and how many books did I read in my literature classes in high school? I mean, if we got through 3 books in a year in my high school classes, that was amazing. And so when you make that comparison, it's really okay to cut out some books. It really is.
Yeah, I have a saying, too many books, so little time. Like you will never read all the books you want to read. So if you read one less book, it's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And ladies, several people are noticing your couch and background is the same since we are live. Do you want to speak to why that is?
But we are all
in the same room.
So yeah, these ladies are actually all out here in Colorado at our Sonlight offices this week, but we have had some bad weather, so they all went back to their hotel rooms, and all the rooms look the same. I live here.
Honey lives here, so she's not.
So that is why mine is different. Otherwise, I would be in the same boat.
But gold stars to all of you who noticed that. That's really good.
Yeah,
your
kids
kids that noticed
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so back to your other question. Sorry, I could not let that one go. We also had our on-demand 10-minute topics. So those were a variety of homeschool subjects. If you did not get to watch those because you've been watching panels today, you should go back and watch those. You have access to all 28 sessions for the next 30 days. But those are led by our mentors. So you'll see these ladies that you've seen today in there, and they are each 10 minutes. So as much information as we can give you on whatever that topic is in 10 minutes. So if you're short on time, you could just watch 1 or 2, or you can watch all 12 in about 2 hours. So just a note on those. Let's see, Mary Lou is asking, will you be in the Missouri convention?
I will.
You guys know?
2 Missouri conventions, yes.
Yeah.
Check the list on our website so you can see which ones we'll be attending, but we'll be in Missouri.
Perfect. Let's see. My husband jokes about that all the time because I'm always telling him I never read most of these books, and he just laughs and says, well, you're pretty amazing even if you didn't read them. So even if you don't read all of them, you aren't failing. And that's a good point. I actually had that conversation with my daughter just the other day where I asked her what her favorite books were. And there were several that she liked that were her readers, or they were read alouds that I just handed off to her. And so, yeah, you don't even have to read all of them with those IGs because they have questions in all of them. And so that's how I've often handled the readers once my kids are old enough to read on their own. What about you ladies? Did you read everything with your kids, or did you turn that stuff over to them?
I love to read. And so I would start reading the readers during the summer. I would buy my curriculum in the spring, and because I wanted to get all my stuff together and get organized, that's just the kind of person I am. And so I would start pre-reading the books. I didn't read, I wouldn't get through all of them, but there were some that I knew that I wanted to be able to read and be able to have conversations, especially as the kids got older. I wanted to be able to have conversations and not rely on just the notes. I wanted to have firsthand knowledge of the book. So my husband still jokes, are you pre-reading that book, or are you just reading that book?
Yeah, absolutely.
I have not read all the books, but I do enjoy the discussions. And part of my high schoolers, like every day after they would read or whatever, they go into such detail telling me what they read. I feel like I listened to it. So
yes. Yeah. And I know when I'm in the Sonlight warehouse and I walk past, shelves of books that I didn't read in high school, even if they're classics that were not part of my school's curriculum at the time, I just get excited like, oh, one day I'm going to have that book and I will read it. So that's kind of my joke, is that when my kids move out, then I will finally read all of these books that I haven't gotten to.
And you'll have a great library for it.
Yeah.
I'm reading all the books that Sonlight has added to the curriculum since we did particular levels. I mean, I literally went through the catalog and highlighted, I haven't read that one, and I want to read them all, because if Sonlight recommends it, then it's got to be good, right?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Let's see. Would you please explain for a total newbie to Sonlight what exactly comes in the all-inclusive box? So I'm assuming this is an all subjects package. I noticed a handful of math curricula that you recommend. What of the curriculum is actually published by Sonlight versus other brands you carry? I do understand that the read aloud books are actual works of literature, but I'm a little confused on elementary language arts or science, etc.
So an all subjects package is really just what it says. It's all the subjects that your child needs for a school year. So it will cover those table subjects, those skill-based subjects like math and language arts and spelling and handwriting, and it will cover those couch subjects or literature-based subjects that Sheila described earlier. So history and Bible and literature. Why do you see different math programs offered? Sonlight authors its own instructor's guides, and you will see many pieces of literature that we have either written or have reprinted because they're books that are out of print. And there are different curriculum pieces that we write. We have our own phonics program. We have our own language arts program. We have our own science program in the pre-high school years. So basically what you're looking at is all of those subjects. Some of them we have partnered with other vendors or other curriculum providers to round out, so we have a complete curriculum. But the nice thing with Sonlight is that you're able to kind of, tweak a program. So if you look at an all subjects package on our website, but decide that math doesn't look like it's really going to fit our family and our unique style of learning, then you can adjust that and replace it with a different math program. So it truly is all the subjects that you need for your school year.
Yeah, and that's actually what I did when I started with Sonlight, was an all subjects package. I think that's a great place to start because you don't really know, what is my kid going to learn from and what are they not. But as we did it longer, then we did go down the path of, oh, I need a different math for this child, or, oh, this one's kind of at a different language arts level than their grade, or, things like that. We do have assessments on our website. So if you're trying to figure out what level your child is, that's something to check out as well. But I do think an all subjects package is a great way to start out, because then you don't have to figure out kind of all those details for each subject. We have a question from Samantha about how the language arts is crafted. Is it research-based, written by experts with PhDs, etc.? So our language arts is our own program. Can you guys kind of talk a little bit about how that is crafted and put together?
Sure. Everybody's jumping in at once to answer that question. So you may or may not be familiar with an individual by the name of Dr. Ruth Beechick. And so Dr. Beechick authored and kind of founded an approach to teaching literature that we at Sonlight feel is a really good way to approach teaching language arts. You may also be familiar with an early educator by the name of Charlotte Mason, who very much was into a literature-based approach to learning and to writing and just all of the subjects tied to language arts. And so our language arts programs are based loosely on that philosophy of teaching, of learning. We do have a product development department with individuals who have training and education in curriculum. Some of them have taught at the classroom level. And so that the combination of all of those parts and pieces coming together would make our Sonlight language arts.
Yeah, and if you want more detail about language arts, we did have a session earlier today that Rhonda did, and she is passionate about language arts. I had a great time talking to her because I've never seen someone get quite so excited about language arts before. I was all fired up after I talked to her about Yay Language Arts. So if you want more information about kind of how we teach that and, assessing what level your child is at and figuring out all those pieces of like their reading and writing may not be the same, definitely go back and watch that session. It is a really good session on our language arts. We have a question in here about the average length of time, or how many hours of work should a middle schooler be doing? They saw how much was expected of a high schooler, but not middle school. So what would you guys say is kind of an average for middle school, or really where can they find this information?
I would say as long as it takes, but no, but really, I mean, every child is different. If you have a child who needs more help, that's going to take more time. If you have a child who's motivated to get through school, then they're going to power through. But in general, they probably won't get it done in an hour or two. There's just a lot of reading to do. The books get longer the older they get. They're no longer, little tiny spines. So I would say that 4 to 6 hours is going to be normal. And that is comparable to a traditional school. But remember, we don't give homework. So once you're done with school, you're done for the day. You don't have to keep doing more.
I was going to say, you're going to have days where your kid is done in an hour, and you're going to have days that it's dinner time and they're still trudging. But when you average it out, you're looking about 4 or 5 hours.
And you can find
there is no homework. So
right. And you can find those estimated time ranges both in the Sonlight catalog and on our website.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note what you guys are saying about, 4 to 6 hours, 4 hours, that is the child time. As your kids get older, your parental time goes down. So definitely check that out on the website or in our catalog to see. That doesn't mean if you have multiple children that you're going to be spending, 10 hours a day doing school with them. Wow, we have lots of questions coming in. Let's see. Okay, so a Uniquely Sonlight co-op, we do offer Sonlight Connections groups. So check out our website for that. And I see Melissa in here, who's our Colorado connector right now, talking to you all. So check the map and see if there's a connections group near you that would be Sonlight families. But if you do not have one near you, you can apply to be a connector and start your own group. That is something we love. So make sure you do that. Somebody is asking about replays. So you should get links to all of the sessions in your email. So you can go back and watch the replays for the next 30 days. Let's see. When I registered for the webinar, how do I access replay? Yeah, so just if you are registered for the webinar, you should get all of that in your email. If you guys have any questions, though, after the fact, you can always reach out to our customer service team and we can make sure that you get access to that.
I think Emma is saying that she misspelled her email address, so she won't get the email. Yeah.
So you won't get it.
But what you said is correct. They can reach out to customer service or to an advisor, and they will be able to help you with that. Or the other thing you can do is go back in and register with your correct email address, because you can continue to register after the event is over for the next 30 days. So just go back in and register again, but make sure that your email address is correct.
Yeah.
And then you'll get all 30 or all 28.
Yeah. Yeah, then you'll get all of them. Bethany is saying what I meant was how to coordinate activities during our co-op to make it for Sonlight. I'm not sure, let's see, specifically rather than just a general get together. So you can make connections groups, whatever you want. I'm not sure if you're asking about academics. Jonna, you direct a co-op. Can you kind of explain the differences between like a co-op for academic subjects versus like a field trip group or something like that?
So our co-op, we do use Sonlight for a couple of our levels and we teach academically, but they're at the high school level that we have a kindergarten science class too, but they teach 1 day a week. The high school level class is church history that I'm doing this year is 200. I address my students read. They do all the reading and the questions during the week. And then we have a group discussion for an hour where I kind of check their maps and we talk about the timeline. We discuss all the fun things or interesting things that we've learned about. And mom is still in charge of their reading during the week. I just get the fun discussion with them. The Discover and Do Kindergarten is being used for a couple of our classes. And since it all can be done in an hour, everything gets done for the week in that hour. And then the student goes home and does whatever mom's got planned for the week. So that's how we do ours. The difference would be those are academic classes. We've done classes where it's just field trips and electives. And so it's really hard to put Sonlight in on an elective class unless it's using one of their electives that they offer.
Our co-op was somewhat similar to what John is describing. And we had some actual science classes. And so I happened to teach the biology class, and we used Sonlight's biology. And when we were together at co-op, the class consisted of doing the experiments together so that we had lab partners in the group. And they did their reading and any additional, questions, activity sheets, or keeping up with their science notebooks they did at home. But we also did public speaking classes, because now we have an audience to speak to. And so we would sometimes assign a topic based on the literature that they were reading in Sonlight. We also at the high school level had book discussion classes. And so if you were working through a particular level, we would pick 1, 2, or 3 of the titles that were scheduled that year, and they would have to read at home and come in and discuss them. So they were somewhat unique in that we weren't following the instructor's guide step by step, but still utilizing Sonlight's materials.
You said the public speaking, that was something we also have added in the past. Is I would go through the timeline and assign the different students somebody in that timeline that week, and they had to give a 2 to 5 minute oral presentation. And it's just reinforcing what they learned, but getting to make them stand up, talk, and be comfortable.
But Bethany was also asking about activity suggestions. Our co-op group put on a Christmas program each year. We would sometimes find local nursing homes where we could take the kids and they would sing carols. We did some art projects together, kind of long term, where they worked on it a little bit each time that we got together. We sometimes would do local state history oriented field trips. And so those were they were academic, but they were more.
So our co-op does a drama a couple times a year, and that really allows the kids to have fun. And they love picking literature books to be their drama. So
that's awesome. So if you guys only could give one piece of homeschooling advice or encouragement, what is your very favorite thing to tell homeschool families?
Remember that homeschooling is a journey. I mean, certainly we all know the goal that we're aiming at is graduating our children, but the joy and the memories are found in the journey. And so just keep your eye on the goal, but realize that the goal is not, the destination is not the thing, it's the journey.
I think Gretchen said in one of her earlier sessions that the days are long and the journey is short. And it just, having listened to it, I was just like, oh, that is so right. I'm at the very end and it feels like I still ready to go and do more. And I'm 23 years into it and it seems like blink and we're done. So
yeah, I think I would say to trust the process. I'm on the other side of homeschooling. We are done. We started with a kindergartner, a 3-year-old and a baby, and now I have a 21, a 24 and a 26-year-old. So we are on the other side. And we had hard days, we had long days, we had tears, but we also had fun. We traveled, we learned things together, we laughed together. And I trusted it. Like when I first started, it was a little bit of a gamble. I wasn't sure. I had never heard of a literature-based program. I have a master's degree in education, and I had never heard of that. I thought I knew what I was going to do when I homeschooled. And then I went to a homeschool convention. I went to a talk Sonlight was doing, and I was hooked. I was like, what? You can just sit and read books and that counts as school? Count me in. And it was kindergarten. I had a 5-year-old, and I thought, you know what? If I screw this up, it's okay. I would have held him back anyway. So we'll do something different the next year. But we had a great year. We learned a ton. I learned a ton. Kindergarten Bible. I read stories in the Eggermeyer Bible that I had never read in my own Bible. I was like, what? This is in the Bible? So kindergarten, I learned a ton. Scripture memory that we learned in kindergarten, my kids can still sing because we sing our scripture songs. So trust it. Just jump in, do it, and have fun.
Yeah, I love that. Have fun. Homeschooling is so much fun. And especially when you're reading these amazing stories, you will find that you are learning and having a great time along with your kids. And I love what you guys said about, take it, right now, one day at a time kind of, or this year at a time. That was how I started homeschooling. I thought, well, I can surely teach preschool, right? And I didn't look beyond that. I wasn't looking at graduation when my daughter started out, and thought if it doesn't work, I can always put her in school. And then after a few years of trusting that process and seeing it happen, I realized she is learning a ton. We are having fun. Look at this relationship we're building. So that is always my big encouragement, is just start small, start now, do it for like a year, only planning that far in advance. And then you'll probably grow to love it and keep doing it like all of these ladies have, all the way through adulthood with their kids. So ladies, thank you so much for being here. I'm always inspired by you and what you say, and I really get a lot out of these sessions myself. And then to all of you who are watching, thank you for joining and for taking time out of your day. I know as a homeschool parent, you don't have a lot of extra time during the day, but we really appreciate everyone being here and joining us. And we hope we were able to help you through these sessions today. But if you need additional information, please contact our Sonlight Sonlight advisors or our mentors. We're all available and ready to talk to you in our app and on Facebook, or you can reach out to main@sonlight.com and get our customer service team. So any of us would love to speak to you and help you figure out, your specific situation. As we've already touched on, all 28 of today's sessions are available on demand for 30 days after the event. So you will receive those links in your email. You can always re-sign up if it didn't go through. Also, if you thought today was helpful and know some people who might benefit from it as well, they can still sign up after the event and watch all the replays as well. And then if you won any of today's giveaways, we will be reaching out. So keep an eye on your email for that. And thank you so much. Have a great evening.